Coming up on One Detroit, the coronavirus has changed everything in our world, and especially for children who are home. I'll get the latest information on COVID-19 in Michigan from Governor Whitmer. Plus more on outreach to help teachers, parents, and caregivers during this time of uncertainty. Also coming up, Detroit finances and property taxes. Nolan Finley goes one-on-one with Detroit's Chief Financial Officer, Dave Massaron. And then the art of Marie Wu, this year's Kresge Eminent Artist Award winner. I'm Christy McDonald, and it's all ahead on One Detroit.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. And thank you to these supporters. And viewers like you.
Hi there and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. We are at our studios at Detroit Public Television, and what a difference a day makes. All of our lives have changed drastically since the spread of the coronavirus. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of changing information. I talked with Governor Whitmer to get the latest on Michigan's fight against COVID-19. Governor Whitmer, thanks so much for joining me. I know that the numbers and the information is changing so rapidly in this situation. So why don't you go ahead and just give us the latest numbers and testing and cases and things that you know right now.
Yeah, so, well, thank you. You know, we are confronting this challenge in an aggressive nature and trying to make sure that we are keeping the public informed. The good news is that we've got a lot of private labs that have come online. The challenge is that sharing of information, and I think we're fixing that. But at this juncture, we know that there are numbers from 2 over a week ago to being over 100 just yesterday, and a lot higher than that today, tell us that we have a serious community spread issue here in Michigan. That's why we took the aggressive actions. I think that they've been an important step in mitigating community spread. But I think the sad truth is that we've already lost 3 Michiganders through COVID-19. And I think that's why it's so important that people take this seriously. We want to share this information so that people understand there's not an age group that isn't susceptible. We've had a 5-year-old in Michigan test positive for COVID-19. We've lost 3 people, and there are a number of people that are on life support as we speak. It's critical that everyone does their part. If we want to flatten the curve, protect people's lives, and shorten the amount of time that our economy is going to struggle because of this, every one of us needs to do our part.
So then that leads to the next question of, are there going to be any more executive orders in the next couple of days that might restrict our movement even further to try to flatten the curve?
Well, I want to start with this. You know, I've issued a number of executive orders, and they've been aggressive, and Michigan's been on the leading edge of the work that states are doing. The fact of the matter is these actions were taken not lightly. In fact, they weigh very heavily, knowing that there are going to be kids who are out of school for at least 3 weeks, that we are going to have people who are laid off as a result of these actions, or small businesses that are shuttered. I know that this has created hardship, but I also know that if we don't take this aggressive action, that this community spread will threaten more lives in Michigan, and our economy will take a lot longer to ever get back up and online. And so it's really critical, these actions that we've taken. As this evolves and as things change so quickly, there may be necessity for additional actions.
Let's talk about kids and parents who are home right now. We've got many kids who are watching. This is coming on the first week of them being home, and they're looking and hearing rumors going around that maybe they wouldn't have school for the rest of the year. What can you tell parents and kids right now about where they might be in the next couple of weeks?
Well, we're 4 days into this 3-week break that I have ordered. I cannot tell you where we will be come April 5th. All I can say is that we are moving as aggressively as we think public health demands, that we are using the best science and facts to make decisions to make your children and your families and our employers and our employees safe. This comes with great hardship. As a parent of kids myself, I know that my kids are home and they'd prefer to be in school. Even though they're teenagers, they still would prefer to be in school. But the fact of the matter is, we have to do what the right thing to do is on behalf of our kids and our teachers and our people in this state. And as we get closer to April 5th, as I have more information and we know where we are a little bit closer to that date, I will be very clear about a decision that I have to make and why I'm making it, but it's too early to know what that's going to be.
And one last message, as this feels like this last 10 days, it feels like a lifetime has gone by. Your last message to the people of Michigan.
Well, this is hard. None of this is easy. Our lives have been upended. And yet we must keep going. We must do everything that we can, and every one of us needs to play our part. I ask that you do what you can do to mitigate community spread, observing the 6-foot perimeter, ensuring that you're staying at home when you can, helping out someone who is homebound because they're medically vulnerable, getting onto 211 and volunteering if you're able to help another person, or even just going to the Red Cross. You can go online and schedule an appointment. I went yesterday and donated blood. They desperately need blood supply. So if you can take care of yourself, that's first and foremost. If you have the bandwidth to help out a little bit more, there are certainly ways that you can do that in a safe manner that makes a difference.
All schools are closed statewide, bars and restaurants are closed, there is mandatory social distancing, and keeping track of all of this is stressful, especially for families with kids. One thing we specialize in here at Detroit Public Television is kids programming, and we are community partners with educators around the state to help bridge the learning gap. We are mobilizing now to help all of the teachers, parents, and caregivers home with the millions of kids during this outbreak. With me is Tara Hardy. She is our education leader here at DPTV. It's good to see you, Tara.
You too.
I know you have been busy this last about 10 days or so, but go ahead, for people who don't really know that DPTV has this outreach and this education wing. What do we do as a station to work with educators and kids?
We always focus on children 0 to 8, and as a public media station, we find our role to be to focus on the adults that surround those children. With the new pandemic happening, we've decided to expand up through 12th grade. We've been putting our education team to work and sifting through all of the great PBS trusted resources that we have available and putting them into age categories and different academic places, and we're putting out a daily newsletter every day. We have been listening to teachers and parents that they're getting bombarded with information left and right. If you've got more than one kid, you've got more than one teacher.
Yeah, you're trying to balance.
And you're trying to balance it all. So we were trying to come up with a one-stop shop with information, like I said, that is trusted, that's vetted through by professionals. And we send it out daily the night before, so that you have something to do in the morning. And then in the evenings, we've created some messaging for parents about different topics like self-care, and we're all in this together. We need to just breathe a little bit and realize that it's really good not to be alone at this time. Even though we're isolated physically, we can connect using devices and whatnot.
I think as parents, it's hard to try to balance every day. And for me, I found it's almost kind of hour to hour because things are changing and kids have a lot of questions. What are teachers and caregivers talking to you, or specifically when you started to try to get all this information together? What are some of the stories that you're hearing?
I'm hearing overwhelmed. I'm hearing what ifs. It seems to be, anxiety is a very natural feeling. Stress is a very natural feeling. None of us have done this before. And it's okay to say that to kids. It's okay to say, I really don't know. Let's find out answers together. But kids are really needing to feel safe at this time. Us as adults want to feel safe. The most we can do to make our kids feel safe and to say to them, this is what I know, and it's okay to say I don't know. Teachers are working nonstop to try to convert things to cyber or virtual. And parents, I think, are taking on a huge responsibility to try to be a teacher and a parent. So we're trying to foster that relationship, but also to tell parents your job is not to be the teacher, your job is to be the parent. And we want to give you activities and we want to give you ideas, but first and utmost, your kids need to feel safe and they need to feel a new routine.
And so we're seeing that from a lot of parents saying,
Yes.
what should my routine be? And
Yes.
from 10 to 11, we're doing this, 11 to 12, we're doing this. But there's also a bit of a gap for people who maybe don't have the resources, who don't have the connectivity, who aren't online, who aren't being able to take advantage of some of the tools that are out there. What about some of those parents and families who sometimes rely on something like public television to be able to help them out?
Absolutely. We have them definitely in our minds as we're pushing out resources. I have a page on Facebook that's Tara at Detroit Public Television. We're finding that people usually have access to phones. And then we're working with, we have spent lots of time in the community before now really developing relationships with teachers and parents and organizations that serve
community
families.
groups,
Absolutely.
good partners.
So we're relying on them as well. We have had a phone call at noon every day since this has started with superintendents and organizations that are serving families, and we're all working together and they're sending us stuff and we're vetting through it so that we can just bring simple and easy to do stuff at home.
Thank you for all of that and all of the resources that we can find. We will have all of those resources available at onedetroitpbs.org. And make sure to tune into the PBS NewsHour right after our show here at 8 Thursday night for a coronavirus COVID-19 special report. All right, turning now to finances in the city of Detroit. The city is trying to answer concerns from residents about inflated property taxes, and while making sure it's still staying within its tight budget. Nolan Finley talked with Detroit CFO Dave Massaron about the latest budget proposal and the city's finances.
So Dave, Chief Financial Officer of the city, has placed you sort of on the hot seat in recent weeks with a lot of angry residents, people upset about overassessments that led to $600 million in higher tax bills after the Great Recession when property values fell so steeply. A lot of people are expecting or demanding a rebate. What relief can you provide those taxpayers?
I would start with, on the $600 million, this is something that anybody who lived in the city or was around the city knew was an issue. And it was one of the first things we tried to address, and we addressed it very aggressively in 2014 by cutting the assessments, and we think getting back to where the market value was. To answer that question, I understand the anger. I understand how I'm on the hot seat. People were wronged by the city, but people were wronged by the city going into bankruptcy in a number of ways. Retirees gave $5 billion so that the city could exit bankruptcy. People's streetlights weren't on, people's buses weren't showing up, and all of that is what culminated in the bankruptcy. And coming out of the bankruptcy, the city has tried to put in place various departments, mechanisms so that this type of thing would not happen again. So I think we've addressed that on a going forward basis. The next thing we have spent our time doing is trying to make sure people can stay in their homes. So every year we have enacted new legislation and new policies to drive the foreclosure numbers down, the owner-occupied foreclosure numbers down to zero. And that's something we're going to continue to do, and we just got legislation through and signed by the governor to allow us to help the 11,000 people that are currently in payment plans. When it comes to repaying people, though, we have to remember this is money that was paid to our teachers. This was money that was paid to our firefighters and our police officers, and we can't get it back from them.
And so you don't have $600 million laying around,
no,
right?
We don't have $600 million. So the only way you get money as a government is to tax people for that money. And if we levy a $600 million tax, it's going to destabilize the entire economy of Detroit and force so many people back into foreclosure. So that's really not an option. What we've been looking at is, are there existing programs that we can put people who owned homes during that time to the front of the line of? We have aggressive home repair programs where we help people who need to have just one or two repairs done on their home. Can we move the individuals that own property during that time to the front of the line? Can we put them to the front of the line for city jobs or other things of that sort?
But Dave, bottom line, people aren't going to get a check. They're not going to get a rebate check.
There just isn't resources to do that.
So let me ask you this. You talk about assessments. The mayor has said the assessments are where they should be now. What about tax rates? Rates in Detroit are higher than any place else in Metro Detroit. Is it possible to cut property tax rates or even cut the property tax out altogether to help spur growth, to help keep people in their homes?
So The property tax structure in the city is an impediment. It's why we have abatements. It's why we have NEZs, which is a tax abatement for homeowners that goes across 20 or 15% of the city. It is a problem and it's something we need to look at. But we have to keep in mind this is not just a city issue. Our property taxes are only about a third of the total tax bill that a resident gets. It is the schools, it is the library, it is the county. And we do need to look at structural reform and what that can mean. I do agree with you that we're going to continue to have to come up with patchwork solutions to this problem until we address the actual problem, which is the municipal finance system for local governments overall.
So, Dave, you're working the budget now. This is the first year of the city since bankruptcy that the city has to start making its pension payments again. I think you said it was $160 million. Where does that money going to come from this year?
So the city over the last 4 years created a thing we call the Retiree Protection Fund, where we've been socking money away to be ready for this moment.
Okay.
And this year we're putting in more than we had planned. We had planned to put in 50 million. We're putting in an additional 20 because the pension funds missed the investment returns. So we have been setting aside and building our budget in a conservative way so that we're able to make that payment. This year we eliminated 154 long-term vacant positions. We've smallened the size of government as we've continued to roll out new technology, and we're going to continue to have to try to drive economic growth like the FCA plant and other major economic developments so revenues go up, and figure out how to do more with less.
We're right now in a period of economic uncertainty in the country, Michigan, everywhere. Is Detroit prepared to weather a recession? I know there was some organization said Detroit was the least prepared city in the nation to weather a recession.
So yeah, you're correct. Moody's, the Rating and Investor Services, said we were the second worst prepared city in the country for a recession. And we're continuing to try to work on that. So one of the things we did this year and last year we doubled the rainy day fund to about 11%. We're adding an additional 20 million this year to try to get ourselves closer to 15%, so we have time to adjust our budget if the economy turns. The other thing is we've completely revamped the way we're doing our budget so that there's more transparency as to what services you're buying.
And finally, a little art in your life. This year, the 2020 Kresge Eminent Artist Award was given to Marie Wu. Perhaps you've seen her pottery or bought tiles with her signature color, Wu Blue. At 91 years old, she's still creating and inspiring a generation of artists.
A lot of potters are inspired by my work, which I'm happy about. I'm the first potter, and I'm the first Asian. I'm the first Chinese to be nominated and awarded. It's wonderful. I went to graduate school at Cranbrook, and I wanted to study with Maya Grotel. She was a very dedicated artist, and she was very influential and inspiring, and she was my role model. And she was very knowledgeable as far as glazes are concerned.
Glaze really is the combination of art and chemistry, and really if you simplify glaze, it's really a glass coating that goes on the surface of ceramics. But to formulate it is fairly complex, and it's something that Marie was able to do in her variety of glazes that still can be found in our studio today.
This is our Wu Blue Brown on the different clay bodies that we have here available at the studio. And so anywhere from a porcelain to a stoneware, you can kind of see that surface variation that students are really excited about.
Now there are so many young potters that I don't know them, but I'm very happy that they like my glazes. They use Wu Yellow and Wu Blue, and I hope it works for you. Oh, this was taken in Nepal, Kathmandu, BC. BC means before children. We were very young in the 60s. I traveled and noticed that folk pottery was just dying out. So I decided before they disappear, I should do some documenting and researching. And so it became a symposium and an exhibition. Then it became a traveling show. About 40 pieces. It traveled from the Midwest to the East, to museums. 2019, I said, I can't do this anymore. So I donated quite a few pieces Usually when you donate pieces to a museum, it goes in storage and it's never seen again. But I want the students to handle and study them.
In 1981, Pewabic became a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and she joined the board at that time.
In those days, nonprofits were very difficult. They were always in the red. And so when they're in the red, they want to eliminate education classes. Some people and I fought for education.
Historically, Marie really advocated for this program, and at a time where maybe it didn't make a lot of sense, she had this kind of forward-facing vision of what this could be. It's kind of nice to see today that we've become, I think, what she envisioned, 30 years ago.
This clay piece here is actually, I wanted it black all the way like this, but it came out of the kiln with all this texture. Wonderful. And then I took the hands and glued them on and made it as a wall piece. I think that works pretty well.
One really fun aspect that's come from the last few weeks of Marie popping around after winning this award is a lot of our students, we kind of encourage them to have goals of things that they should be working towards. And now there's this kind of similar goal that's been popping up since Marie came here, and that everyone wants to loosen up the way that they work with clay. And so I think that's something that's really unique about Marie. She has these incredible skill sets, but she has this kind of loose nature about working with clay that's very organic and kind of, has been very magnetic for our students. And so I'm kind of finding now that the students kind of all have this shared goal of loosening up like Marie.
I'm started this piece as an experiment. So I took these very individual pieces and fired them, and then I stacked them up and put some glue in between, and it became a piece of sculpture after it's fired. I think it works pretty well, but by itself, each piece would not work, but together, it's a whole.
She's just so lovely, and I think just simply loves what she does. Her resume is pretty outstanding, and she's someone that, her impact isn't a secret. And so I expected her to almost carry that more than she does, but she's very open and infectious.
I'm just trying to express how I feel and what I can do with the clay as a way to express myself. I don't want to fight it, I just sort of go with it. Hopefully my experiments will work. Some do and some don't.
And that'll do it for One Detroit. Thanks so much for joining us. In this ever-changing world, know that Detroit Public Television and PBS will be here for you, for information on the outbreak, and for programming and shows that can help educate and entertain, and just give your mind an escape for a short while. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.